while fiberglass batt or rolled insulation is more commonly installed in new construction. There are times you will be required to install it when weatherizing an existing home, so it's necessary to have a good understanding of the procedure. The first thing you need to understand about fiberglass insulation is that you must protect your lungs and the rest of your body from its harmful effects. Fiberglass is exactly what it says, fibers made of glass. When these fibers come into contact with your skin or eyes, they will become itchy and irritated. When these fibers are inhaled, they can irritate the lungs, and they can get embedded in the tissue of the lungs and remain there. It only takes a few minutes to protect yourself from the harmful effects of fiberglass. Fiberglass insulation will typically be installed in exterior walls, overhead in unconditioned spaces, such as a garage ceiling that is beneath the conditioned space of the house, and in an unconditioned attic's floor space, which is directly over the ceiling of the conditioned space of the home. Essentially, the same set of tools is needed for all these installations. You will need a stepladder, a tape measure, a utility knife or other tool to cut the insulation, a stapler, wire supports for overhead installation, boards or plywood to stand on in the attic, and portable lighting. Wherever you are installing the fiberglass insulation, certain work procedures will hold true for each. If the insulation is faced with paper or foil on one side, that side will always face the conditioned space. The insulation will be ordered by the auditor to match the size of the space it will be installed in. Pull the fibers of the insulation to make sure that it fills the entire depth of the space. Remember that fiberglass insulation loses R value when it is compressed. Install the insulation so that when one piece butts up against another, there's no space between them. Also, fill all spaces carefully, even if it means cutting a piece of only a few inches. Keep safety in mind at all times. Use safe work practices when using ladders. And use boards or plywood to span across the joists in the attic to avoid stepping between the joists and damaging the ceiling below, or falling to the floor below. The insulation will sometimes need to be secured so that it does not move from its intended location. This may be done with a stapler, or with a wire support or other type of support for overhead applications. A common method of improving the thermal envelope of a home is to increase the R value of the attic's insulation by blowing in a layer of insulation. Fiberglass, mineral wool, and cellulose are all examples of insulating materials that can be blown into an attic. The safest and most commonly used is cellulose, so that is the material we will focus on in the remainder of the video. Before cellulose insulation can be blown into an attic, it's important that the attic be prepared properly. The things that will need to be done to prep the attic will be listed in the scope of work document prepared by the auditor, but some basic tasks must be done nearly every time. Plywood or boards will be needed that are long enough to span from at least one joist to another, and preferably across several. Portable lighting must be set up if adequate lighting is not already available. The attic must be sealed to stop air leaks. Likely places that will need sealing are the top plates of interior walls, and any penetrations caused by ventilation, plumbing, or electrical components. When the attic is ventilated with a soffit ridge vent combination, baffles must be installed between the roof rafters to keep the insulation from landing on the soffit and plugging the air opening. Containments made of fireproof materials such as flashing, drywall, or ductboard must be installed around fixtures that enter into the attic space, such as recessed light fixtures and kitchen and bathroom fans. These containments must be at least 4 inches from the edge of the fixture at any given point, and must be tall enough to rise above the level at which the insulation will be installed. Dams must be built around access ladders or scuttles. They must be built to a height of at least 2 inches above the level of the insulation that is to be installed. This dam should be built of a durable material, such as plywood or planking. It can be insulated with rigid insulation, and a tight-fitting cover of rigid insulation can also be made. This will help keep the access point from being a huge point of heat loss. It's also a good idea to install markers on the joists that will extend upward to the desired height of the insulation, or to mark the desired height on the roofed rafters. This will aid in keeping the insulation at an even height, and therefore keeping the same R value all the way across the attic.